I want us to also look at the issues surrounding people leaving South Africa to go fight in Russia. Because it looks like there's a bigger syndicate here. How is it that there are different people leaving the country to go to Russia under different reasons, and they end up fighting in the war in Ukraine? There are some people that were arrested over the weekend that are going to be appearing in court this morning. So I do think that we need to pay close attention to what's happening in Russia. In fact, let's get straight into it. I want to bring in Colonel Katlego Mogale, who's the Hawk spokesperson, joining us now on the line. Thank you so much for making time for us, Colonel. Good morning.
Listeners.
So there were, my understanding, 5 South Africans who were arrested for allegedly traveling or attempting to travel to Russia to join the Russian military. The group was taken into custody following a Hawks investigation. What more are you able to share with us? Were they transporting people there, or were they themselves going to join the Russian army?
At this stage, the investigation is rather at its early infancy. What has been done was that they were prevented from going through to Russia, and from the gadgets that we have confiscated through a warrant, we were able to ascertain several other information that is pertinent to the case. Also, the fact that they apparently are facilitated to be part of these people that have gone or were going to in the front lines in Russia.
So, have you uncovered some kind of a network as the Hawks here? Because it really seems like this is so coordinated. Because there are always these different groups where you find that people are being sent to Russia and they end up fighting in Ukraine.
We suspect as much from the information that we got from the gadget, and we are also looking as to how is it that these people are facilitating these citizens of South Africa into war zones. We are trying very much to see also this case is also maybe has makings of being combined with the other 17 that had already left.
So does this case have, now that you mentioned this other 17, does it have any link, direct or indirect, to the recent reports of the MK party members who were sent to Russia for training?
At this stage, our investigation is separate from that, but we can't rule out the possibility that they might convert at some point, as we have amongst that the destination of the 5 that are appearing today in the Captain Magistrate Court were also going to Russia.
Okay, what charges are going to be facing today?
We'll be facing charges of contravention of the regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act.
Okay, Colonel Katlego Mogale, thank you so much for quickly speaking to us. Apologies for the quality of that sound, but she is in court. Those 5 people that were arrested are just about to appear in court, and we ask that she speaks to us just quickly before the court proceedings resume. But they are expected to appear in court on charges under the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act, which prohibits citizens from joining or assisting foreign armed forces without government authorization. What's interesting, though, is the arrests that we saw over the weekend come shortly after separate reports that members of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party's youth wing had also allegedly been sent to Russia for military-style training. And the latest case raises fresh concerns about foreign recruitment networks, the vulnerabilities among young South Africans, and the country's legal stance on serving in foreign armed forces. So we've invited Dean Wingrin, who is a defense analyst, to just help us understand if there is something bigger here we should be concerned about, or these are small little separate pockets of incidents. Dean, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement, and the listeners.
How significant is it that South Africans are now being arrested for attempting to serve in the Russian military? And is that really what's going on here? Because it looks like there are separate groups getting to Russia under different guises, but it looks like ultimately the plan is to get them to end up fighting in Ukraine?
Yes, that's precisely it. And it certainly should be a concern, not only to us as South Africans, but to as citizens of Africa as well, because it's not only South Africans that are being targeted, but there's a large number of Africans already serving in the Russian military, most having arrived at the front lines, with no intention of actually having to fight on behalf of Russia against Ukraine. And by the estimates, there's roughly about a minimum of 1,500 people from Africa in Russia and in Ukraine, and these come from a large number of countries, not only South Africa, but like Nigeria and the DRC, Ethiopia, Burkina Faso, and so on. And as you say, they've got there via various reasons.
Okay, so this is not something that only involves South Africa. We're seeing other people from other countries also making their way to Russia.
That's correct. And there are numerous syndicates and organizations and mercenary groups that are specifically targeting Africans to go there. North Korea has got an official government-sanctioned program to send thousands of their North Korean army soldiers to assist Russia. And there's a lot of Cubans as well who are volunteering to go to fight in Russia. But there's a lot of Africans as well who are very tempted to go. And they can be split into two groups. The one group is like the 5 people who've just been arrested, in the sense that they're intentionally going to fight on behalf of Russia. So the Foreign Military Assistance Act, it talks around willingly and knowingly going to fight on behalf of a foreign organization. So these people, it's far easier to get a conviction under the Act because they had the intention of going there. They're going there for opportunities of free passports and inflated salaries and things like that. Then you've got another group of people, which the NK-affiliated men, the 17, and so many other South Africans they've gone to Russia on false pretenses. They've been offered other jobs. They've been told other reasons why they're going there. To work in drone factories, to work far behind the lines, and so on. And only once they've got there, they suddenly face themselves with the reality of suddenly having a foreign language document that they don't understand, which is actually a military contract, forced to sign that, and within a week or two, they find themselves on the front line. And those are the people that will be very difficult to get a conviction because they had no intention of going there to fight. But obviously, the people who organized that, they obviously have charges against them, and particularly, charges against the Trafficking in Persons Act, which will be pretty applicable here as well.
What does this tell us about the state of the Russian military? Because I'm wondering here, is there something that speaks of how desperate the military is to capacitate itself? What do you think is at play here?
That's exactly it. By all accounts, the Russian army is suffering huge attrition. The Ukrainians are saying that there's daily casualties in excess of 1,000 people, and that's both killed and injured. So these are huge numbers, and it seems that the Russians don't want to implement a formal call-up of all their citizens, and hence why they're so happy to have North Korea sending their troops, and they're particularly eager to get foreigners because of this high attrition rate. And, the Russian army has a very different way of fighting to what the South African army and many other armies have in the views of human life and what, and the results and what it takes to achieve a particular military aim, comes above all else.
Yeah.
And hence they're suffering these high casualties. And that is why so many foreigners are being killed on the front line. And, once they're there, it's incredibly difficult to extricate them from that situation.
Yeah, sure. And how do we then deal with it? Because I think our government has tried to intervene. I've seen some reports that the former President Jacob Zuma has either written or even tried to go to Russia to get some intervention. That has failed. I mean, I would imagine that this is an issue now that will involve the two governments having a conversation, because we've got so many vulnerable South Africans, particularly the unemployed youth, who could easily be recruited by these foreign militaries or private military structures because they're desperate for a job. How do you think we resolve it between the two countries? Because it looks like, the Russian government is not saying much.
Yes, indeed. And it requires a multi-pronged approach. The first phase and stage is definitely one of education. There's been news articles for the last year or two indicating, and advising and warning people that, there are these fake job ads, there are these scams, there are these, on the face of it, legitimate opportunities of going to Russia, but once you're there, you find yourself in a pretty desperate situation. So you must do your homework. You must be aware of what could happen, and do your research prior to signing up for these programs. And then, of course, there's from the South African side and from the intelligence-led operations. It is known that the vulnerable in the country is being targeted. And so we've seen there have been people going to Russia already. So they must be proactive in following up. But there's just so many different organizations and groups of people, both within South Africa and internationally, targeting our citizens, that it's quite a difficult job to actually focus and home in on particular named suspects, and all credit to the Hawks and the intelligence services for actually apprehending these 5 individuals on Friday evening before they could leave.
Yeah.
But I suspect, they've missed many, many others who have previously departed South Africa. And then, of course, you've got your normal political interactions. South Africa has a good relationship with the Russian government. But, given the world of geopolitics, the South Africans serving in the Russian army is a minute drop in the overall things that are occupying the Russian politicians and military's mind, and there's not a single database that they could go to say, oh, this name, okay, they're in this location and we can quickly extract it.
Yeah. Dean, thank you so much for making time for us. Dean Wingrin is a defense analyst, just helping us understand what is going on. We're hearing a lot of stories now about people leaving South Africa to head to Russia. Some of them are aware what they're getting themselves into, but there are others that are simply not, and they're being sent there under false guise, and they realize when they get there, they're told to sign forms that are in Russian. They don't even understand. The next thing, they're on the front lines, fighting together with the Russian army. It's 21 after 10.